Well, good morning, church family. I am so excited to be here to share the message with you today. I thank you to my husband, who loves me so well and trusts me and is my biggest cheerleader. Thanks for entrusting me with your pulpit today. I miss you all on Mother's Day, but we were watching our youngest daughter walk across the stage at University of Arkansas. So it's so fun to be here today. The message today is called The Secrets of the Vine. And it all began as I started reading this little book by Bruce Wilkinson called Secrets of the Vine. But when I really think back over my life, I have been in awe of grapevines and vineyards as far back as I can remember. There's just something about rows of grapevines, winding over rolling hills, the quiet patience of the process, and how something so earthy can turn into something so lush and green and beautiful. You know, I always thought if I were a plant, I would be a grapevine. Gets lots of sunshine, deep roots, and let's face it, they end up at the best parties. So my sister grows grapevines in her backyard, lush grapevines. Now these are the non-fruit bearing vines, and they're grown just for the leaves. They are a special kind of grape leaf that our family, in our Lebanese culture, that the Greeks, that so many Mediterranean, Middle Eastern cultures use in this fabulous dish where you take the grape leaf and you roll it with rice and meat and spices, and then you low simmer them for hours and then pour on fresh lemon juice and then eat them. They are our family's love language. Our kids and our grandkids cut their teeth on rolled grape leaves. Now, when Chris and I moved to Tyler 17 years ago from Arkansas, I just knew it was time for me to grow my own grapevines. For the first time, I was so excited to be in a warmer climate. My mom brought me a clipping from her own vine, and it was a twig about this tall, a few of them, and it didn't look like much. But she helped me find a very sunny spot in the backyard by the fence, and we planted it, and I was so excited. Every day I watered it, I checked it, I even talked to it. I said things like, "You are so beautiful, there is so much potential inside of you, and my great-grandmother is going to be so excited and so proud of me for growing my own grape leaves." And then one day, I went out to check it, and it was gone. Couldn't figure it out. What animal would dig up and run away with a twig? Then I remembered. Chris had mowed the lawn the day before. My heart sank. I was dreading the dinner conversation when I was going to have to bring this up and to ask him this difficult question. But we sat at the table and I just decided, rip the Band-Aid off, Lisa, here you go. And I said, "Honey," very gently, "do you happen to remember the grapevine? Did you see that yesterday when you were mowing?" And he kind of looked off to one side in a very pensive, deep way and said, "Well, I do recall something that looked like a twig. I thought maybe it was a weed. I'm pretty sure I mowed over it." Y'all, my dreams shattered in the name of yard maintenance. Since that day, I have legitimately tried again and again to grow grapevines in my backyard. But between Chris's mower and the towering pine trees that now surround the house that we live in out in the woods, blocking out every drop of sun, I finally had to admit to myself and to my great-grandmother, God rest her soul, that this was just not meant to be for me. My sister, on the other hand, is the envy of Lebanese women. Her back fence is covered with a blanket of the most lush, green, vibrant grape leaves. She cannot pick them and roll them fast enough. The only vine Chris and I have been able to successfully grow is poison ivy. It loves shade, and no matter how many times he mows it down, it comes back stronger and more vibrant than ever. So while my sister's vines nourish, mine just give Chris an itchy rash every time he does yard work. But here's the point. Growth doesn't always equal fruitfulness. Some things in our lives are growing, spreading, climbing, taking up space, distracting our attention, but they're not nourishing our souls. They're not connecting us to our divine purpose. And like poison ivy, they often choke the joy, the peace, and the fruit right out of us. Which leads us right into Jesus' teaching in the vineyard in today's reading of John 15. But let's first set the scene, because John 15 is the beginning of the end of Jesus' life, earthly life. In fact, later that night, he would be betrayed and crucified on a cross. The 2 chapters prior to Jesus' teaching in the vineyard, John chapters 13 and 14, 2 full chapters John writes about are devoted to Jesus and his disciples sitting around the table at the Lord's Supper, the Last Supper, that Passover night when Jesus shared his last earthly meal with them. Those 2 chapters are just full of Jesus' teaching and warning and cautioning and empowering of the disciples, trying to tell them what is about to happen to him. But he can tell they just don't get it. They've been following Jesus for 3 years, seeing the most unbelievable healings, miracles, the feeding of the 5,000, the raising of Lazarus from the dead, and they have experienced the deepest love and compassion unlike they had ever encountered before with this man. At one point during the Passover supper, Jesus gets up from the table. It says he ties a towel around his waist and pours water into a basin, and he kneels down to wash his disciples' feet. What is happening? They just don't get it. And then we see into John chapter 14, he's promising the disciples that he will send the Holy Spirit after he's gone. And he says to them, peace I leave with you, peace I give to you, not as the world gives. My Holy Spirit is coming. It will be with you. It will guide you. It will teach you. It will show you who I am and what I'm calling you to do. And then at the end of this 2-chapter meal, he says, come now, let us leave. And they file quietly out of the upper room, and they begin following Jesus toward the vineyard. So in case you're wondering if we were ever going to get to the vineyard, friends, strap on your sandals, because we're headed there now. In Bruce Wilkinson's book, Secret of the Vines, he paints such a compelling picture of how this might have unfolded with Jesus and the disciples. He says 11 dejected and discouraged men follow Jesus out of the upper room and out into the cool night air. They had just sat through the most depressing sermon they've ever heard. They're confused and they're following him, wondering what's going to happen next. They follow Jesus to a garden on the Mount of Olives, where they often spent time. They follow him down a hill and through the winding streets of Jerusalem. Avoiding the Temple Mount and its noisy, celebrating crowds, Jesus turns right and leads them out of the city. And they follow the Kidron Valley up toward their destination. It is here they pass through the vineyard. The disciples quietly walk in between the vines, following Jesus, and he begins speaking to them. I am the vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will bear more fruit. I am the vine. My Father is the gardener. In these two short verses, Jesus talks about three kinds of branches. Did you hear it? Branches that bear no fruit. Branches that bear some fruit, and branches that bear abundant fruit. What does he mean by this? Well, let's start with the branches that bear no fruit. I find this really interesting. The branch that bears no fruit, he says, in most versions it says he cuts off this branch. But I dug a little bit into that word cut off because I thought, God doesn't just throw people out. This can't be right. What is he saying here? Did you know that in the original Greek text, the word arrow actually means to lift up, to take up? Here we see this picture of the gardener lifting up the branches, walking through the vines and finding the heavy ones that have grown too long and they've fallen down and maybe they're getting dusty in the dirt and they're heavy and they're just not getting much sunlight. And we see this beautiful picture of the gardener, the vine dresser, gently lifting those branches, wiping and washing off the leaves, tying them up so that they can get the sunlight and the nourishment they need. Maybe you have felt like that branch, the heavy one, like you're stuck in the dirt, maybe down, heavy-hearted. Maybe it's been a season of betrayal or grief or hurt. Maybe you're just surviving, but not thriving. You long for peace, purpose, any kind of fruit, but it's just not happening right now. Good news, friends. If you have ever found yourself or are in this season, God's not mad at you. He hasn't abandoned you. Instead, he is moving toward you. He's lifting you. He's holding you. He's cleaning you. He's embracing you. He's saying, take your time. Healing is coming. There's peace and there's fruit on the way. Stay connected to the vine. I've got you. The second type of branch is the one we're going to marinate on a little more today. And this is the branch that bears some fruit. The branch that bears some fruit. I don't know why I've never noticed this before until I started to dive into this passage the last few weeks. Because Jesus says to the disciples, the branches that bear some fruit, the gardener prunes, so they will bear more fruit. Interesting. This is a part we don't often love. If you're bearing some fruit, you better believe God's going to prune you. Why? Why is that necessary? Well, because he sees your potential. He sees so much more in you than you can see. He sees purpose. He sees your heart to love and serve others, to make an impact in the world. Your family, your friends, your community, your grandkids, your sisters, your brothers. The lesson of the shears was an interesting lesson that I learned about a few months ago at a women's event that some of my friends and I in this room attended. Marnell, the proprietor of Keepersall Vineyards, was one of our speakers. And it was her father, Pierre, that founded Keepersall Vineyards over 20 years ago, had the vision to create something beautiful and fruitful for the community. And she told a story about the most impactful lesson she probably ever learned from her father. He's been gone about maybe 8 or so years. And she said she'll never forget the lesson of the shears. She said, Dad would take us out in the vineyards, me and my little sister, in the wintertime when it was pruning season. And he would take his trusty, incredibly strong shears, and she pulled the shears out of her bag and said, these are my father's shears. And he started teaching his daughters the significance of pruning. He said, here's the deal. When you have branches that have grown so long that they're getting farther, this part up here is getting farther and farther away from the vine. It's losing its energy, its source of nutrition. It's not going to produce the fruit that it needs to produce, that it is capable of. But if you take the shears and you clip them back and you prune them back, the branch will be closer to the vine. And that's where the production of fruit happens. That's where the abundance of fruit grows. I find it so interesting when I read a little more about the pruning process. Left unpruned, grapevines will produce lots of leaves and long branches, but very little fruit. Grapes only grow on new growth. And the new growth comes from last season's pruned branches. After the branches are pruned, the vine looks bare, even lifeless. In Chris's defense, it looks like a twig. But inside, energy is being stored up. Nutrients are rising up. Life-giving water and everything that the branches need to produce the fruit they are capable of are rising from the roots up through the vine and out into the branches. These branches, because they were pruned, will burst forth stronger and more juicy and more bountiful fruit than they would have ever produced if gone unpruned. Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will bear even more fruit. Are you in a season of pruning? I am. This spring, I was feeling a restlessness in my soul. I couldn't put my finger on what it was. I was doing all the things I felt called to do. Serving, speaking, helping create events and get-togethers, and I was coaching women and trying to help other women be all they were created to be. But something was off inside of me. I felt tired, overwhelmed, like there wasn't a spare second in the day to just rest. I felt exhausted trying to be everything to everyone. All spring this went on, and one morning in May when I was out for an early walk, once again, I cried out to the Lord, what is it? What am I not doing right? Why am I feeling this way? What's happening, Lord? What are you trying to show me? And then I turned the corner and saw a bush. But this bush was not burning and there was no audible voice. But I heard a voice. And you all probably know what I'm talking about when you hear something and it is so clear that you can't ignore it. And the voice said something like this, Lisa, I love you so much, but I need more of you. I need your full attention. Not scattered, not the leftovers. I want you. You're scattered, distracted, busy, trying so hard to do all the things you feel called to do. You're bearing some fruit, and the fruit is lovely, but there is so much more for you. Here's what I'm asking you to do. And I thought to myself, what's happening here? I'm asking you to step out of striving and into my spirit. I need you to step out of pressure and proving and pleasing and into presence. Come and sit with me, and I will show you who you are, who I am, and what my calling is on your life. The restlessness you feel in your soul is simply your resistance to the pruning that needs to be done. And girl, we've got some pruning to do. Prune, the definition of pruning, to prune, to thin, to reduce, to cut off. Lord, what? What are you asking me to cut off here? What am I supposed to get rid of in my life? Deep down in my soul, I knew. He was asking me to unplug, to slow down, to be still, and take it to the next level. I was being guided to get away from social media. It was draining my soul. So on the night of May 31st, I deleted Facebook and Instagram off of my phone, and I stopped giving my energy away to everyone and everything else that was out there. And instead, I began lingering in those early morning hours, just me, my deck, my coffee, my birds, and God. The Spirit of truth. He gives us the Spirit of truth. Friends, in order to hear His voice, to feel His inner guidance that only His Spirit offers, to receive answers and clarity and peace and deeper healing, we must give Him our full attention. Be still and know that I am God. I don't know about you, but I've noticed something interesting that's been happening over the past decade or so. Our world is so noisy, isn't it? Between TV and the 5 o'clock news and the wars going on around the world and social media and text messaging, and then there's notifications, and then there's emails, and technology has just created this. As interconnected as technology has made us, the human population has never been more lonely. It is disconnecting to humans. And that's what I realized was happening in me. I mean, for goodness gracious, how in the world did I ever travel anywhere without putting an address in my GPS? Lisa, you don't need to put the Brookshires into your GPS. You know how to get there. Just drive, focus, concentrate. How did I ever graduate from high school without Siri or Google asking them questions? Heaven forbid I lose my phone somewhere in the house and can't find it for a whole 5 minutes. We live in a world full of noise and distractions, and without even realizing it, we've allowed our attention to be captured, our presence to be scattered, and our peace to be hijacked. What are the noise and distractions holding your attention? What's pulling you away from God's presence and robbing you of peace, stealing your stillness, your ability to just sit and be and listen and connect? Is it the family drama that finds its way into every phone call or group text? Maybe it's the evening news running on repeat and raising your blood pressure by the minute. Is it a lingering health condition that cannot seem to be healed? Maybe it's scrolling through Facebook, checking up on the grandkids, the neighbors, the classmates, and before you know it, you're elbow deep in a stranger's birthday party wondering how you got there. Or maybe it's online shopping. You know, that little gadget or yard tool or throw pillow is just the ticket to give me some peace right now. Or maybe it's comparison robbing you of peace. Watching others travel and remodel and be with their families, and everything seems so perfect out there. Meanwhile, I'm feeling like my life is a mess, and I'm just a failure because I don't have what they have. Comparison is the thief of joy. Or maybe it's not what you're doing, but what you're trying not to feel. The grief that still sneaks up, the loneliness that lingers some days, the sense that time is moving so fast and my purpose feels out of reach. Like maybe it's just not possible anymore for me. And sometimes distraction looks like busyness without fruitfulness, exhaustion without fulfillment, a packed calendar, but an empty soul, a noisy day, but no time to hear from the one who whispers in stillness. The psalmist writes, "As a deer pants for water, so my soul thirsts for you, O God. My soul thirsts for the living God. Where can I go and be with God?" My friends, we can be with God every second of every day. The secret to purposeful pruning, friends, is purposeful presence. Purposeful presence, coming into God's presence, lingering with Him, connecting with soul, with spirit. It's not in the busyness or the doing or the striving. It's in the being. I love this quote. I've used it so many times over the years. God is not found in the soul by adding, but by subtracting. What will you subtract so that you can practice purposeful presence? And open your soul to the vine dresser's shears. This is how we stay rooted in peace. This is how we create abundant lives, which leads us to our third kind of branch, the branch that bears much fruit. Jesus says to his disciples, if you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Remain. Some translations say abide. Some translations say rest. If you rest in me. Stepping out of the doing and into the being. I love the Passion Translation. I've been reading it more lately. It says, if you live in life union with me as your source, fruitfulness will stream from within you. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Fruitfulness will stream. That means stay close, stay connected. You don't have to strive for fruit. You just have to stay as close to the source as possible. Prioritizing time with him, sitting in his presence, listening more, talking less. And when we do, we experience a life that overflows. Not with busyness or pressure or noise or distractions, but with the fruit of the Spirit. And if you know them, say them with me. With love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. That's the fruit he's after. That's the fruit he wants to continue to cultivate in our lives. So let me ask you, what is growing in your life right now? Is it leafy but empty? Or fruitful with a little bit of fruit? Or overflowing with bounty and abundance, peace and purpose, joy and laughter, love and forgiveness, kindness? What might God be gently asking you to prune or asking to prune, not to take something from you, but to make space for what he wants to grow in you? Friends, pruning always leads to purpose, always, and presence is what gets us there. Pruning can be painful, but oh, is it worth it? Last year on Mother's Day, I mentioned a book I was starting to write, a daily inspirational guide, and several of you have been kind to ask me all year long, is it ready yet? Is it finished yet? And I'm just gonna come full clean to you right now. I have not touched that book until a month ago. And when I started sitting in presence, practicing presence, guess what? I put a few hours back into my life of the noise and distractions that used to be there, and this unplugged month of sacred rest, I've actually had time to write again. So the title of the book is Be Still and Know That You Are Loved, a 30-day sacred reset from distraction to divine whisper. It's a gentle daily invitation to pause, breathe, and reconnect with the truth that you are loved. You are already enough, and that God has more fruit ahead for you. Today's message was an excerpt from the book, as well as 30 more daily inspirational readings, journal prompts, exercises, affirmations, and prayers that have emerged through my sacred soul time practice. Cultivating a daily practice of presence, silence, and spiritual reflection is the key to creating a thriving, abundant life. I'll be letting you know when it's hot off the press. I'm putting the finishing touches on it now. But let me leave you with this blessing. Father, thank you for being the master gardener of our lives. Thank you for loving us so much that you prune us, not out of anger or disappointment, but out of anticipation for what you're growing in us. Your goodness, grace, and loving kindness are beyond our comprehension. You see more in us than we often see in ourselves. You see fruit where we see failure. You see purpose where we see discouragement. And you see beauty where we feel bare. So today we surrender the parts of our lives that no longer serve your purpose. Cut away what's unnecessary, every distraction, pressure, and burden that we were never meant to carry. Help us to trust the shears in your hand. All our lives, you have been faithful, Lord. All our lives, you have been so, so good. With every breath that we are able, we will sing of the goodness of God. Amen.